VIP is for founders, Lauren. Staff overflow is in the basement service corridor. Try not to ruin the aesthetic. Those were the words my sister-in-law spat at me as she physically blocked the velvet rope. My brother Tyler, the man whose empire I had spent 3 years building from the ground up, didn't step in. He didn't even look at me. He just laughed, adjusted his silk tie and looked right through me. Standing there at the grand opening of the summit, the billion-dollar resort I designed, I realized the truth. I wasn't a guest of honor. I was just the help they were finally evicting. I'm Lauren, 29. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. I turned away from the velvet rope and the laughter of the people who shared my last name. I didn't run. I didn't make a scene. I simply walked toward the service door marked Staff Only, and pushed it open. The heavy steel door clicked shut behind me, severing the sound of the string quartet and the clinking of champagne glasses. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, filled with the low, steady thrum of the building's circulation systems. I began the descent into the service corridors. With every step down the concrete stairs, the air changed. The scent of expensive perfume and fresh orchids faded, replaced by the smell of stagnant water, industrial cleaner, and the metallic tang of coolant. This was the underbelly of the summit. These were the guts of the billion-dollar eco-resort that my family was currently toasting upstairs. And unlike the polished marble lobby, I knew every inch of this dark, damp concrete maze. I knew it because I had drawn it. I had supervised the pouring of the foundation while Tyler was busy picking out Italian silk ties for press photos. I had argued with contractors about load-bearing walls while Brianna was debating font sizes for the cocktail napkins. They had evicted the architect from her own creation, but they had forgotten that the architect knows where the skeletons are buried. Or in this case, where the kill switches are located. I reached the server room at the end of the long gray hallway. It was cool inside, the air conditioning humming a different tune than the party upstairs. The racks of servers blinked with rhythmic green lights, the heartbeat of the resort's proprietary smart grid. This was my sanctuary. I didn't need a VIP badge to be here. I pulled an old plastic crate over to the main console and sat down, balancing my laptop on my knees. The blue glow of the screen illuminated the darkness. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel the sting of rejection anymore. What I felt was a sudden, crystal-clear realization of the transactional nature of my relationship with my family. They wanted the fruit, but they didn't want the root. They wanted the status of the resort, but they didn't want the woman who built it. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wasn't hacking. I didn't need to break in. I simply logged in using my admin credentials. Credentials Tyler had never bothered to revoke because he didn't even know they existed. I navigated to the core system controls. There was the master key protocol. The intellectual property rights for the entire smart grid system were licensed to the resort, contingent on a lease agreement that was currently sitting in a digital purgatory, and signed by the current CEO, my brother. Technically, legally, and digitally they were using my software without a valid license. I typed in the command code. It was a simple string of characters, unpretentious and lethal. License revocation. I didn't hesitate. I didn't tremble. I pressed enter. On the screen, a progress bar filled up in 3 seconds. System access, denied. Power regulation, offline. Smart glass, audio, muted. Upstairs, $60 million worth of real estate was instantly lobotomized. The ambient lighting would cut to black. The climate control would shut down. The smart glass windows, designed to offer panoramic views of the mountains, would instantly frost over, turning the ballroom into a windowless box. The music would die. I sat back on the crate and watched the green lights on the server racks turn to a solid, angry amber. It wasn't a tantrum. It was an administrative correction. I was simply taking back what was mine. The green lights on the server racks flickered and died, plunging the room into a heavy, mechanical silence. It was a silence I knew well. It was the same silence I had lived in for 29 years. People always ask why the scapegoat stays. Why did I spend 3 years designing a billion-dollar monument to my brother's ego when I knew exactly who he was? Why did I pour my soul into concrete and glass for a family that wouldn't even give me a seat at the table? It isn't stupidity. It is conditioning. My parents, James and Lisa, didn't raise 2 children. They raised a star and a stagehand. And they started the training before I could even tie my shoes. I remember being 8 years old, sitting at the kitchen table rewriting Tyler's book report because he wanted to play video games. My mother didn't scold him. She smiled at me and said, "You're so good at helping, Lauren. You make everything easier for us." That was the hook. That was the first drop of poison. They taught me that my worth wasn't inherent. It was transactional. My value was calculated solely by how much heavy lifting I could do for Tyler. Psychologists call it the trap of normalized cruelty. It doesn't happen all at once. It is a slow, methodical erosion of your boundaries until you believe that being used is a form of love. You start to think that if you just work harder, if you just fix one more mess, if you build them a big enough castle, they will finally give you a room in it. You think your utility is your rent for existing in the family. So I became the architect of their lives. I fixed Tyler's grades in high school. I ghostwrote his college application essays. When he founded his first company, I was the one up at 3 a.m. coding the website while he was out celebrating with investors. I convinced myself that I was essential. I told myself that without me they would fall apart and that meant I had power. But sitting there in the dark server room, the blue light of my laptop reflecting in my eyes, I finally admitted the truth. I wasn't essential to them. I was convenient. There is a massive heartbreaking difference. They didn't love the architect, they just loved the building. And the moment the building was finished, the architect became clutter. They thought they had trained me well. They thought they had built a permanent support beam that would never crack, never complain, and never leave. But they forgot one critical thing about training a dog to be loyal. Eventually, if you kick it enough times, it stops looking for your approval and starts looking for your throat. I wasn't the stagehand anymore. I was the one pulling the curtain down. I didn't need to see the ballroom to know exactly what was happening upstairs. I knew the architecture of the chaos I had just unleashed. The panicked murmurs of 300 VIP guests plunging into sudden darkness. The screech of feedback as the audio system died. The claustrophobic confusion as the floor-to-ceiling smart glass, which offered the only view of the mountains, turned instantly into frosted opaque walls. They were trapped in a windowless, airless box of their own making. My phone buzzed against the hard plastic of the crate. It wasn't a text. It was a call. The screen lit up with the name Tyler. I let it ring 3 times. I wanted him to sweat. I wanted him to feel the seconds ticking by, each one costing him reputation and capital. On the 4th ring I answered. I didn't say hello. I just listened. What the hell did you do? Tyler was screaming so loud the distortion crackled in my ear. Everything is dead, Lauren. The lights, the air, the glass, it's all shut down. I have senators and investors up here standing in the dark. It sounds like a system failure, I said, my voice flat, calm, devoid of the panic he wanted to hear. I know it's a failure. You built it, he roared. You incompetent little. Fix it. Reboot it, hack it, I don't care what you do, just turn the lights back on right now. If this isn't fixed in 2 minutes, you are fired. Do you hear me? Fired. I almost laughed. He still thought he held the leash. He truly believed that shouting at the architect would make the building obey him. He had no concept of the reality that he was currently standing on a trapdoor that I had just unlatched. There was a scuffling sound on the other end, the phone being snatched away. Then came Brianna's voice, sharp and breathless, dripping with that familiar, weaponized condescension. Lauren, stop this immediately, she hissed. I know you're upset about the VIP entrance. I know you're feeling sensitive today. But ruining your brother's big night because you can't handle a little boundary? It is pathetic. You are being dramatic and selfish, and you are embarrassing the family. There was the double down. Even in the dark, even as their empire crumbled around them, they couldn't conceive of a world where I wasn't the problem. To them, this wasn't a revolution. It was a tantrum. They thought I was a child acting out, breaking a toy because I wasn't allowed to play with it. They didn't realize I was the one who owned the toy store. Are you finished? I asked. No, I am not finished. Brianna snapped. Robert is here. The investors are furious. You are going to fix this glitch, and then you are going to come upstairs and apologize to every single person for your incompetence. Do you understand? I understand perfectly, I said. You think this is a glitch? Just fix it. Tyler yelled from the background. I looked at the server racks, silent and dark. I looked at the access denied message glowing on my laptop screen. They weren't asking for help. They were demanding submission. They were proving in real time that they would never respect me, never value me, and never see me as anything other than a utility to be exploited. I can't fix it, Tyler, I said, my voice ice cold. Because it isn't broken. It's revoked. I hung up the phone. I didn't block them. I wanted them to see what was coming next. They wanted professional. I would give them professional. I opened my email client and prepared to send the document that would turn their panic into total ruin. I didn't open a new draft. I opened a file I had prepared 3 years ago, saved in a folder named Contingencies. It was an email addressed to Robert, the primary investor, with a CC to the family's entire legal team, the board of directors, and of course Tyler and Brianna. The subject line was simple, unthreatening, and devastating. Notice of intellectual property revocation and land use violation. I attached a single PDF document. We called it the Ghost Clause. See, when we started this project, the land wasn't owned by the resort company. It was held by a separate family trust to protect it from liability. And because I was the responsible one, the one who handled the boring paperwork while Tyler handled the champagne toasts, I was the sole trustee. The deal was simple. The trust would lease the land to the summit for 99 years. All Tyler had to do was sign the lease agreement. It was one piece of paper. One signature. He never signed it. I had reminded him a dozen times. Yeah, I'll get to it, he'd say, waving me off to take another phone call. He thought it was just administrative fluff. He thought that because we were family the paperwork didn't matter. He thought his last name was a signature. He was wrong. Because he was too lazy, too arrogant, and too busy playing CO to actually be a CO, the lease had never been executed. Technically, legally, and undeniably, the summit didn't have a lease. They had built a $60 million resort on land they didn't have permission to occupy. They weren't owners. They were trespassers. I stared at the blinking cursor and realized the truth my family never understood. They treated power like a costume. Something you could fake with titles, fancy clothes, and attitude. But real power isn't borrowed. It isn't worn. Sewn. And everything they flaunted was rented on an empty wallet. So I typed the email that would end the illusion. Dear board members and investors, as of 8:45 p.m., the smart grid license used by the summit is revoked for non-payment. The corporation also holds no valid land lease. This facility is operating in violation of trust property. Effective immediately, all operations must cease and the premises must be vacated. No thrill. No adrenaline. Just the cold satisfaction of a long overdue equation balancing. When I hit send, the ballroom above me would fill with funeral bell notifications. By the time I reached the lobby, the chaos had already begun. Guests confused in the dim emergency lights, waiters frozen beside melting sculptures, the whole place collapsing under its own empty grandeur. Robert confronted me first, calm and razor-sharp, holding up the email. Is this accurate? Every word. Within seconds he pulled funding, killing their $60 million dream with a single command. Tyler and Brianna arrived begging, panicking, insisting we were family. But family doesn't erase you until they need your brilliance. Family doesn't steal your work and expect you to be grateful. I dropped the admin keycard at their feet and walked out into the night. 6 months later, their empire was dead, sued, bankrupt, stripped of status. But the land remained mine, and instead of selling it, I rebuilt it. Researcher housing, a community center, and a renewable energy hub I named the Terra Sanctuary. I learned that justice isn't burning down someone else's field. It's reclaiming your seeds and planting them in better soil. My family was barren ground. What I'm growing now finally bears fruit. They say the best revenge is living well. I think the best revenge is building a life they no longer have the power to define.